Hey, how's it going? Welcome to another episode of Lost Like Mike. I am your host, Mike Gonzalez. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for coming by and joining the conversation. Thanks for messaging me at lostlikemike@gmail.com. That's lostlikemike@gmail.com. I appreciate that conversation. I tried to start this episode a couple times, as I always sort of disclose when that happens. There's a low hum in the background that I'm just going to have to deal with. The first time I stopped the show was because I was trying to find an artist that I was recently introduced to and that I was going to talk about and share. I wouldn't have thought that TikTok was going to be a platform that I was going to be introduced to artists and to musicians and to singers, and but I found some pretty fantastic artists on TikTok. A lot of times it makes you just want to stop creating. They're so talented, they're so awesome, but more often than not, I think it's more of an inspiration, makes you want to create and to do whatever it is that you do. But I'm telling you, some of the natural talent in these folks is just amazing. But anyway, there's been several visual artists that are catching my attention. They're just doing some profound things. Anyway, it's hard to be judgmental of art, right? Because it is up to the person that is viewing it to give it whatever quality that, or to judge the quality of it, and in terms of whether it's just some paint thrown on a canvas or whether it has some sort of meaning or purpose to it, some sort of visual provocativeness that makes you enjoy it in a way that you would sort of consider it to be a higher form of art. The second time I stopped was primarily I was interrupted, but that's not, and I couldn't get back to my thought. I couldn't sort of recenter myself back to what I was trying to say. And with this particular subject, I didn't want to come off, I don't want it to be like misconstrued. I was telling a story. It reminded me of a story that I was saying about going to an arts and craft market, right? I live in kind of a small town, so a lot of times they have these these fairs where they'll set up these booths and people will display their woodwork or their paintings or their they had these plush toys made out of yarn that were pretty interesting. A fella does some 3D printing art that he manufactures these figures. Anyway, there was this young lady. She was probably in her early 20s, and her art basically consisted of, there was these canvases, right? These small canvases. And it was what you would imagine from here's a tree and a house and a little, and a sun over here, and the sky is just a one color blue, you know what I'm saying? And the sun is just a circle and it's yellow. I mean, and I felt like it was just like a gimmick, like oh you, but I think you have to pay to rent these tables and sell your items at these fairs. So, and I had two different. It impacted me in two different ways. In one way, I thought, I mean, there are a lot of folks that do this, right? That sort of understand the idea that there's a sucker out for everybody, and maybe they don't get what art really is, and so they figure they can slap anything on a canvas and find somebody that will pay money for it. I don't know. And then on the other hand, I felt, well, maybe this is her vibe. Like maybe that's just, you know, she has a calling for it and she wants to create something, and that's the extent of her creation. I don't know. And like maybe that's an amazing thing that she has the courage and the willingness to put herself out there and dare to be judged, you know. And you know, that's why I say, I mean, it's hard for me to articulate my problem with it. On one hand, you want to like, there are some metrics that you can use to judge certain types of art, right? Does it have any sort of technical skill to its creation? Does it have any sort of, you know, form or balance or I don't know. It's just, obviously anybody can call whatever they want art. You know, I think I drew the line at, you know, the crucifix in a jar of urine, you know what I mean? Like, I thought that was just, you're trying, you know, you're just provoking for the sake of being outrageous. And maybe that's not a popular opinion, you know. Maybe that's not, you know, maybe anything is art to anybody, right? I remember, I think his name was John Cage. It was this person that had released, he had a whole presentation. It was, his musical piece was silence. Yeah, I was right, John Cage. It's called 433. And he just sits there in silence. Right. I have to go back and listen to it if there's anything to it, if there's any music at all, you know. Because why would you do it for exactly 4 minutes and 33 seconds, right? But he was, I don't know, it was supposed to be, I mean, it was back in 1952. I don't know if he had some sort of, so yeah, it's in 3 movements and they don't play their instruments at all. And it's like, but here we are over 50 years later talking about it, right? Or I am anyway. I don't know how I remember this fool's name. But, I mean, and so he was a composer, and so I guess how you view that as as theater or as some sort of like it's beyond me. Maybe it's, I get it, you want to be different, you want to be avant-garde, but at the same time it's a performance piece. It's not like you can't say it's a beautiful piece of music. Maybe it's a thought-provoking one, if that. I don't know if you can, Anyway, what got me thinking about all that was I've recently, I really believe that my daughter has this gift where she sees art on a page, on a canvas, and she knows what she needs to do to create it. And when she's done, she knows she's done. And it's a very clear vision. And it got me thinking of when I was her age. I had a bit of technical skill. I could do still lifes. I could draw or paint what was in front of me. But if given a moment of creativity where you say, like right now I have this giant canvas and I bought it, and I have all these smaller canvases, and I bought it. I had no intention of buying it. I don't know if I probably told this story on the podcast, but an artist, a teacher, passed away, and through a friend of my wife's, I found out that this person had passed, and her boys were trying to liquidate her house and assets to provide a funeral. So I felt like it was prudent. So I went and I went to their house, and they had all these paints and canvases and different medium chalks and colors and stuff, and I came away with a lot. But it's something that happens with me and my daughter all the time, where I'll sit down with her and with the intention to create, and she starts. She knows already. She goes and she's creating and doing her thing, and I'm like, and it never fails. It's always, well, what do you think I should draw? Or what do you think I should paint? And we talk about it, and I'll find something on YouTube. I'll find some kind of Google image, and I'll start to start as a jumping off point, right? I don't know, but I know that institutions, schools and certain regimental environments, like Sunday church and different things, where things are certain patterns, and you have to follow rules, and they sort of push that sort of creativity out of you over time, where they subjugate you by making you adhere to certain rules and you have to follow certain instructions in the creations that they ask you to make, and confine you to these sort of, put you in boxes to what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. And so that's just been something that's on my mind recently. I'm having a big I'm gonna have a lot of time with her. We're gonna spend the day taking care of appointments and things, but it's just gonna be me and her all day. And I'm really thinking about how to nurture that side of her. I want to encourage her to kind of never lose that you think about these different artists that have kids in the industry. I think like Will and Jada Smith, I think of their kids. At their disposal, they have all these instruments and outlets and teachers and producers surrounded by like just. I saw a video of Willow Smith um, just hanging out in a studio that's like in her house. You know what I mean? With musicians and just like at any hour of the day sitting there just recording in a soundproof booth, just kicking it, just developing ideas and I mean I just think that's fantastic, it's amazing. And yeah, that's how you get artists that have so little inhibition, right? Because they could just create and create, and they're surrounded by creativity. And I agree that it's to an extent. There's some natural elements there, right? There's some genetic elements in there. I get that too, and I also get that you can give those opportunities to somebody with less talent, and they'll just, I heard a great one from from oh my god, I'm not gonna not know this guy's name. It's so stupid. Denzel Washington. Oh my word. Sometimes the names that I can't remember freak me out. Because it's right there on the tip of my tongue to see the guy. Anyway, he had this great quote where he said, not to mistake movement for progress. Was that how it goes? It's a great quote and it means the world to me. And then I'm like, is that what he said? Because he says you can also find yourself running in place. And don't confuse movement with progress. Yeah. And I find that to be true in terms of like, I've always had this sort of willingness to do whatever it takes to get to where I need to go, but sometimes lacking in the direction, right? And that's a tough place to be when you feel like your willingness, your energy and your willingness are there, but direction and all that kind of stuff is not. Yeah. In retrospect, you can always sort of feel those where you can see everything's 2020, and when you look back, yeah. Anyway, but so I'm gonna spend the day with my daughter tomorrow, and I wanna. She's always doing all these cool things, going to these theme parks or going to these different places, and so that's not the direction I'm really gonna take it, because she does all that kind of stuff with her mom. The above and beyond activities. I kind of want to do something that's particular to us, and have some sort of fun, while doing that. I'll have to see. Um, I wonder sometimes if it's a lack of artistic vision on my part, or if it's inhibitions that have sort of culminated over a lifetime. You know what I mean? Like, um, you know, what are the restraints that you put upon yourself that stifle your creativity? I've done some very creative things in my life, but it's just this phenomena of of this blank canvas sort of test, where I can be with a sheet of paper and a pencil and the challenge to create, and just wants you doodle or do something with it, you know. And I don't know. It's just something to think about. You know, recently I've been annoyed by a lot of commercials, and I've talked about it a little bit, but there was one that brought up this idea that I was kind of wanting to delve into a little bit, and that's the idea of gratuity. Obviously, I'm a performing musician, and we can talk about that for a little bit. The idea of setting a jar in front of, not just in a sort of general troubadour kind of street performer sort of way, but I perform at restaurants or like, clubs, and it's customary to set up a tip jar, you know. And it's a cultural thing. I get that. Where the idea comes from, I'm not sure, but I know it's been around for forever. You know what I mean? So this is where I'm prefacing what I'm wanting to talk about by saying this, because what I'm getting at is that before I started talking about tips, I wanted to just preface it by saying I make tips from being a musician. So, it's an interesting position to start to be criticizing this tipping thing. There was one commercial where they're saying that, it was from Domino's, where they're talking about that tipping is everywhere in culture right now, and they show like somebody doing weightlifting, and then that was a great set, man. Like, just need you to look at the screen, and then you're supposed to tip them. Here's the thing. I went to a restaurant, right? And this has happened a couple times recently. They have these new like boxes, like where you put your credit card right in, right? And then they hand it to you, and on the screen it tells you how much to tip, or what the percentages of suggested tips. And the first time that I kind of saw this, or with any sort of reaction, was it was at the place where I was getting my hair cut. And it comes up on a screen, would you like to add a tip? And then it gives you some suggested tips. But I thought that I much prefer for the person to set the bill in front of you and to walk away without the pressure or the presumption of gratuity. And then you tip accordingly, whatever you're going to do. And they come back and you're gone. They say, bye, thank you. And then they, on their own time, they look at it and say, oh, okay, he or she tipped me or did not tip me, or what have you. What bothers me is when, like recently I was at this diner, and the wait staff hands me the this this box that you put your credit card in, and then holds on to it in front of me with the expectation that I fill out the information. Like I say, oh yeah, I want to tip this much. And here's the thing, this person was not a good wait staff. They were maybe 10% gratuity good. Okay? You always say, well, 15% is kind of like the bare minimum. Okay. But the expectation is that you come back by, you check on how the meal is going, right? The expectation is that you get a refill of your drink. All of this prior to, if you want to offer a to-go cup, that's kind of a new thing. But especially with the prices of food these days, right? The service, if you're expecting a gratuity, it's not by default. It's not by the fact of your position. It's absolutely a meritocracy. It's absolutely built on how well you did your job. You could say, well, they're living off these tips, and it's what they got to go home with. Yeah, I get it. I've been a server, but all the more reason why. Like, this person was chitty chatting with another table, and I sat there, and items from my meal didn't come. It was a that one of those where there was a breakfast type of thing, and it was supposed to come with different side items. I don't know, biscuits or toast or something like that, or side of whatever it was, and items never came, but they were sitting there talking to these other people. And, there was one opportunity for a refill, and it was only because we had to call the person over to us and say, yo, I'm choking over here. Could you get would it, like, kill you to refill my drink? You know what I mean? I wasn't like that about it, but I'm just saying, like, and then when they come up, it says 15, 20, or 25%. You know what I mean? Like you already think that you're killing it at this job. And I'm saying, look, I'm not opposed to tipping. I tip very well. But it's almost when it's an entitled expectation and without any sort of service, without earning it any sort of respect. And to relate it to what I'm saying about as a musician, look, I get it. It's a weird idea to tip a band based on their song choices, or they're playing one of your requests, but I'll sing till I can't sing. I'll play my butt off. And I really try to sing whatever song they want, and I'm up there for 4 hours really trying to entertain. And I get it, it's like a cultural thing. Maybe it's like a weird vibe to tip somebody for singing or playing, but I take the job seriously in terms of, I wouldn't go up there and be like not even bothering to try to sing it correctly, or to kind of just walking through the motions and have an expectation of getting a tip. I certainly wouldn't come to your table and hand you a box and say, I just finished my song, what are you going to tip me? And as much as I bitch about people that don't tip, I don't send the bucket around and say, okay, come on, hand it over. I know that, you would want to tip that. I just find it offensive. Like, at the very least, it's just stupid. It only makes you resent the person more, and not want to say, like, I won't go back to that diner again. Like, you know, because I think that you set a bad precedent, right? Like you're making it where it's like this mediocre, half-assed service with all this expectation on the other end. Like, we're gonna charge a lot for our food, and we're gonna expect a big gratuity at the end of it, but it just puts all the spotlight on that quality of that food and the quality of that service in a negative way, in my opinion. I've known some talented servers in my day, intuitive servers that would just have condiments at the ready. So if they were asked, they would already have it on them, and they would just, set it up. The kind of servers that would bring extra small plates because they recognized that it was a family dynamic, and we're probably going to split the food. If they had an extra, entree, or if they had like an appetizer or what have you, and even if it was built for one, they would bring extra plateware. Where they had a regimen of when to check on their people. And yeah, so in that way, it's like it's yet another level of how being in the service industry for as long as I had been, where it's sort of my expectations are sort of loaded, because I've seen it go both ways. I've seen good service and I've seen bad service, and everything in between. And I can tell when somebody's phoning it in, and it just pisses me off when it's like that. I don't know. I mean, my cousin guitar player, we were talking about it the other day, about learning songs that we don't necessarily like, or would not normally play, because we often get asked to play certain artists that we may or may not think are our cup of tea, or what we would really sort of shine in doing. But it's meeting the public halfway. If that's what they want to hear, if that's their entertainment, then I think there's a bit of an obligation there to try to entertain, I guess, and it's an expectation. But anyway, it's that idea of handing it to the person in front of you, and then looking at them like, okay, what are you going to tip me? Like, what are you going to press? And it's like, it's gross, dude. Like, take a walk and come back and get your stupid box, whatever it is, But it's like a popular new thing where a lot of restaurants are doing that. I think that if you're a good server or you're a quality server, then you're going to make good money without like looking over the person's shoulder and like eyeballing them until they write in a quality tip, And look, I get it. There's like a whole percentage of the population that are crappy tippers, but you always hear these stories about these frustrated drivers. I mean, look, by now, if they haven't exposed Uber and DoorDash and all these different Favor and all these different ride services and delivery services for the scams that they are, I mean, I've worked those things in a pinch when I was trying to raise money. But, by the time you take gas and maintenance and everything out of, if you don't have big tips, then you're really making less than minimum wage after you take all the things out. It's really stupid. And this is if you have rides or like things back to back. You could sit there and spend time waiting for orders, waiting to be called to do things, just burning up your clock. So I used to like say, okay, well, I'm going to give it this much time. And then you'd sit there and wait for people to call or orders to come in. And so, yeah, I can understand how somebody would be frustrated. You have a minimum that you'd make for the job, and then people would stiff you and not give anything on the tip. So you would end up, all that money went to gas and and you spend an hour of your time shopping in some grocery store for these fools, and then to be, all for $5. And then by the time you factor out taxes, gas and upkeep of your vehicle, you lost money. And it's just such a scam, dude. It's so crappy. The potential is there, but, it's not run by the drivers. It's run by a company that's making money by sitting on their ass and letting algorithms dictate where they send their drivers and it's just, but as long as they've got suckers that'll do it, me included at a time, then it is what it is. But yeah, and so I can understand the frustration of the drivers and the people that are completing these orders. They have to make sure the order's right. They have to make sure that all these special requests from the consumer are met. Hold the onions or extra this or whatever it is, straws, napkins, extra ketchup, whatever and then, because if you mess up, then they get the order for free and all this, and then at the end of it, $2 tip. And so they have to sit there and they've wasted an hour of their time on some schmo that just gave them nothing, So I get it. I get it. There's a frustration there, and there's sometimes you want to sit there and eyeball them and be like, are you seriously going to give me nothing? But I don't know. I think, Frank Sinatra used to walk into an event he'd walk into a casino, he'd walk into a social club, and he would give a diner, like a restaurant, he would give the wait staff, the valet, whoever it was, he would give them the tip up front. He'd give them, slip them a 20 or slip them whatever, give them, and he had that philosophy that he was going to tip you ahead of time, right? And you knew he was a good tipper, so he would set that tone of what his expectation was. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to tip him like I want to be treated, not based on how I was treated, was his mentality. And if you got the bread, man, make it happen. I guess that's the moral of that story, right? Because if I was balling like that, I guess I would drop some money, like that on the front end. But I think that's the way to go, man. I don't know, these days, though, there's like a whole generation of younger people that feel like service is such a anyway, and maybe it's not younger people, maybe it's just a certain sect of people. There are groups of people of all ages, shapes, and sizes that seem to think that service is, beneath them, even though they work in the service industry, where it's like the judgment is from them to the customers, being like, this customer is rude or unkind or didn't, are expecting to be taken care of. What are they come here to this restaurant to be taken care of? Are they out of their minds? What are they? I mean, they wanted a refill. I mean, I have things that I've got to do. I've got to wash dishes, whatever. It's like, it's a different take, and it's weird to watch. And I've seen it so many times on display when they're sort of filming these customers and they're painting them out to be these, the villains. And it's like, don't work in that industry. You have to have an expectation of what your job is. I've worked all my life in customer service. Believe me, I know that sometimes you have to be nice to unreasonable people. Sometimes you have to cater to people that aren't the most appreciative. Never would I ever suggest that you should ever be talked down to or be cursed out, or I would always tell my team members, and I still to this day in my current position, there's no expectation for you to be yelled at or to be cursed at. Just approach it as for as long as you possibly can, understanding that the person is upset or having a hard time with, and it has nothing to do with you as an individual. Don't take it personally. However, insults and curse and being cursed out and all this sort of thing, it's not an expectation of this position or any position. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and let y'all go. It was nice visiting with you this week. I didn't even get into that. Very briefly, I'll mention I did get my bike. It was a birthday present to me to get my bike taken into a professional to fix up. Right? Like, they're gonna soup it up. And look, I could have done it myself. As far as I could have put a tube in the tire, I could have replaced the chain or whatever. I get it, but it's a nice bike. I love riding, and for once, I wanted somebody to just pimp it out. From top to bottom, from the seat to the handlebars. Just soup it up, make sure it's tip top. I mean, it's underrated, man. I think it was when I was introduced to this one, when I was doing my book. There's this application where you can go on and outsource these different jobs. And I think that it's something really everybody should do. At least you should look for experts in whatever field that every now and then, and just let them do their specialty and make it happen for you. I mean, I'll let you know how it goes though, because I'm supposed to pick it up on Saturday. Yeah, but I'm so excited. I've just been. I tried to replace the seat on my bike. I took it to the place. I was like, this seat's been rocking. I can't figure it out. And they're like, oh, it's because they put on an adjustment, like a second set of this whole separate chunk that was on the seat was like a modified version of the seat. So it wasn't even supposed to be there. Whatever, like I knew. I just attached the whole bloody thing on there like it was all supposed to be part of it. And I would ride it like that too. I was riding it with that rocking, like the shaking seat. I thought it was like made like that to like absorb like impact. I'm like, how justifyingly stupid is that? But anyway, so I'm really excited. I'm gonna start writing it all the time. Um, but I'll let y'all know how that goes. But anyway, thanks for coming by. Thanks for visiting. Keep those messages coming at lostlikemike@gmail.com. And if you haven't messaged yet, you know what? Just try it out. Message me. I'll respond to you. We'll chat about it. Lostlikemike@gmail.com. And I'll see y'all next week. Bye.